old tat on Netflix is because she uses her royal title every time she puts out more.
A few years ago, Meghan Markle was working on a show called Deal or No Deal, and today she's doing Deal or No Deal with the Queen of England.
Being a part of this family and the platform that comes with that is an incredible responsibility that I take really seriously.
Meghan Markle just got dropped. And I'm not talking about a small stumble. I'm talking about Netflix saying, "We're done," without even bothering to send a goodbye text. Here's the thing. They didn't make a big announcement. They didn't call the press. They did something way colder. They canceled her quietly. Like when someone stops responding to your messages, but you can still see them living their best life online. That kind of cold. And the wildest part, that Christmas special everyone thought was a celebration? Yeah, insiders are saying it was actually a farewell disguised as holiday cheer. Executives literally called it the closing credits. They already knew the show was over before anyone else did. No renewal, no comeback, no magical Hollywood ending. Just a polite smile hiding a brutal, "We're finished." And trust me, what went down behind those cameras? It's messier than you think. But before we dive in, you're going to want to stick around for what comes next because it gets brutal. Go ahead and hit that subscribe button, drop a like, and turn on notifications so you don't miss anything. Trust me, this gets wild. So here's how it actually went down. Netflix didn't throw a press conference. They didn't release some dramatic statement. They didn't even bother with a "it's not you, it's us" goodbye post. Nope. They ghosted her. And I mean proper ghosting, like when someone just stops replying to your text, but you can still see them online living their life, posting stories, acting like everything's fine. That's exactly what happened here. Netflix kept it cold, kept it quiet, and kept it professional on the outside, while behind the scenes they were already packing up the relationship. Listen, this wasn't some sudden decision either. Behind closed doors, insiders were already talking. And what they were saying, it wasn't good. They said that Christmas special, the one that looked all cozy and festive with the decorations and the warm lighting and the holiday spirit, wasn't some wholesome celebration like it seemed on the surface. It was a cover-up, a nicely wrapped farewell gift that nobody actually asked for. The whole thing was designed to look cheerful, to feel like a heartwarming seasonal treat, but really, it was Netflix's way of saying, "This is it, we're done here, we're closing the chapter." It was the entertainment industry equivalent of breaking up with someone right before the holidays and pretending everything's fine for the family dinner.
Meghan's simmering obsession has just got weirder. And we've seen it all week.
Here's the thing that makes it even colder. Executives were literally calling it the closing credits before the special even aired. They already knew the show was done, finished, over. No season 3 waiting in the wings, no big surprise renewal announcement coming later, no Hollywood comeback magic about to happen. Just one final holiday episode to tie everything up with a bow and move on to the next thing. And you know what's wild? They made that decision and then went ahead and filmed this whole Christmas special knowing it was the last time they'd work together. That's brutal. Now let's talk about that mega deal. You remember when Harry and Meghan first signed with Netflix? Everyone thought it was going to be massive. The Sussex brand was supposed to be the next big thing in streaming. Documentaries, shows, content that would break the internet. But that deal was set to expire in September 2025. And here's the kicker that nobody saw coming. Netflix wasn't even thinking about renewing it. Not a chance. Not even a conversation happening behind the scenes. No negotiations. No, let's see how this plays out. No, maybe we can work something out. Just a hard no that never even got said out loud because it didn't need to be. The decision was already made. Get this. The biggest streaming platform in the world, the company that bets billions on content and talent, looked at the Sussex deal and said, "Yeah, we're good." That's not just a business decision, that's a statement. That's Hollywood telling you your value just dropped. And when that happened, when Netflix quietly decided not to renew, the royal countdown officially hit 0. And nobody was rushing to reset the clock. Nobody was stepping up with a new offer. Nobody was trying to save the deal. It was just silence. Cold, brutal business silence. Now, if Netflix was going out, they weren't going out quietly. They were going out messy. And by messy, I mean they pulled out the most awkward, uncomfortable moment they could find and plastered it right there in the final trailer. I'm talking about the kiss. Yeah, that kiss. The one that made everyone watching go, wait, what just happened? Because it looked anything but romantic. It didn't look sweet. It looked forced, stiff, and honestly painful to watch. Here's what actually went down in that footage. They're sitting there, probably filming some holiday scene, trying to look like the perfect couple enjoying their perfect life.
I think I can very safely say, as naive as it sounds now, having gone through this learning curve in the past.
Harry's just doing his thing, completely focused on his food, like a guy who's hungry and wants to eat in peace. He had no idea cameras were on him. He wasn't thinking about romance. He wasn't even aware they were rolling on him for the trailer. The man seemed like he'd just woken up from a nap, wandered onto set by accident, and someone handed him a plate. And his hair? Oh man, people couldn't stop talking about how rough he looked. One person even said he looked like he'd been dragged through a hedge backwards. That's not me being mean, that's literally what people were saying when they saw the footage. So there's Harry minding his own business with his food, and then suddenly Meghan just pulls him in. Not a natural, spontaneous moment between two people who are feeling the vibe. Nope. This was a grab. Like when your mom yanks you into a family photo you don't want to be in and you're just standing there awkwardly while she smiles for the camera. That's the energy. Harry was completely caught off guard and you could see it on his face. He clearly wasn't into it. But the cameras were there, so it happened anyway. And Meghan, she looked uncomfortable too. Her jaw was stiff, her whole body language screamed uncomfortable, and even she looked like she was flinching during the moment. It wasn't about connection, it wasn't about love, it was about getting the shot. Prove we're happy, prove we're in love, prove this is all working out great. But what it actually proved was the complete opposite. It proved that this whole thing felt performative, staged, calculated. The kiss wasn't a sweet moment between a couple. It was a marketing tool, a prop for content. And Harry, he was just the other prop in the scene. Here's where it gets even worse. Netflix knew exactly what they were doing when they put that clip front and center in the trailer. They could have used literally any other footage. They could have picked moments where Harry actually looked engaged, where the couple seemed natural, where things didn't feel so awkward. But they didn't. They chose that moment. Why? Because they knew what sells. Drama sells. Awkwardness sells. Embarrassment sells. They knew people would watch that kiss and talk about it, share it, dissect it, make jokes about it. And that's exactly what happened. The internet lit up with people pointing out how uncomfortable Harry looked, how forced the whole thing seemed, how this didn't look like a real relationship moment at all.
She is so consumed by an obsession with presenting this.
And you want to know the wildest part? Word is, Harry didn't even know that clip was going to be in the trailer. He filmed that moment thinking it was just background footage, something that might not even make it into the final cut. Then, boom, it's the centerpiece of the marketing campaign. His awkward, caught off guard, please let me eat my food moment is now the face of their final Netflix project. That's not just embarrassing. That's humiliating. That's being used for content without even knowing you're the content. And Netflix did it anyway because at the end of the day, Harry sells. His discomfort sells. His visible unhappiness sells. And they weren't about to leave that money on the table just because it made him look bad. So, after the Netflix breakup, Meghan didn't sit around feeling sorry for herself. She didn't cry into a pillow or take time to reflect. Nope. She did what every reality show villain does when the crowd stops cheering. She pivoted hard. And her new angle? Mom life. Suddenly, her whole vibe shifted from Hollywood royal to mommy empire builder. The buzzword wasn't about streaming deals or documentaries anymore. It was all about parenting advice, lifestyle branding, family-friendly content, maybe some fancy products thrown in there, the whole package. Insiders were saying she was cooking up this massive plan behind the scenes, a complete rebrand centered around motherhood, home life, cozy family moments. And if you watched that Christmas special closely, you could see her dropping hints everywhere. The warm lighting, the homey crafts, the family vibes, the whole aesthetic screaming, "Look how grounded and real I am." It felt like a soft opening for something bigger, like she was testing the waters to become the CEO of Mom World, building a brand around being relatable, being hands-on, being the kind of mom everyone wants to follow for inspiration and advice. Here's the thing, though. There's a pretty big problem with that plan. The world doesn't actually see Meghan as a hands-on, deeply involved mom. And it's not just people being mean or making assumptions. The transcript literally spells it out. She leaves the kids with nannies for long stretches of time. We're talking extended periods where she's off doing other things and someone else is handling the day-to-day parenting. And get this, she doesn't even know who's watching them half the time. I'm not exaggerating. That's what came out. She's not keeping track of which nanny's on duty.
Meghan's face afterwards looks kind of annoyed, and Harry looks like he doesn't really want to be here.
What's happening with the kids? Who's taking care of what? It's not exactly the image of a mom who's deeply plugged into every moment of her children's lives. And her big parenting moment that she bragged about, the one she wanted everyone to know about, she brought her daughter into a business meeting for like 5 minutes. That was the flex. 5 minutes. Not bedtime stories every night. Not cooking breakfast together. Not being the one who knows exactly what her kids need at any given moment. Just a quick pop-in during a work meeting. That's the highlight reel of her motherhood involvement that she chose to share. It's like opening a bakery when you don't even eat bread. Or starting a fitness brand when you never work out. The product doesn't match the packaging. But here's the reality. Money talks. And when your Netflix crown slips off your head and hits the floor, you grab whatever new hat you can find. Even if that hat says mom boss and doesn't really fit right. Because behind all the glitter and the cozy aesthetic and the carefully staged family moments, the message was pretty clear. This wasn't actually about motherhood. It had nothing to do with sharing genuine parenting wisdom or connecting with other moms on a real level. This was about marketability. This was about finding a new lane to sell products, build a brand, and stay relevant when Hollywood stopped calling. And Meghan wasn't planning to stop at crafts and cozy vibes either. The mommy empire thing was just the beginning, because when you've built your whole image on being royal, being special, being different from everyone else, you can't just be a regular lifestyle blogger. You've got to go bigger. You've got to package everything perfectly. You need to make sure every moment, every product, every piece of content has that royal sparkle attached to it. Even if the reality behind the scenes looks nothing like what you're selling. Now, while Meghan was sketching out her mommy empire plans, Harry was dealing with his own kind of reality check, a financial one. And honestly, it's wild how far things have shifted for him. Remember when Harry used to stand next to world leaders? When he'd give speeches about global issues, represent the royal family at major events, and actually have weight behind his name? Yeah, those days feel like ancient history now. Because fast forward to today, and the man is booked to give a keynote speech to real estate agents. Let that sink in for a second. Real estate agents. Not diplomats, not political figures.
I think you can have as many conversations as you want and try and prepare as much as possible, but we were totally unprepared.
Not heads of state, estate agents in Toronto. And this wasn't some charity event where he showed up to support a cause. Nope. People had to pay to attend. We're talking actual ticket prices, serious money just to sit in a room and hear Harry talk. And about what, you ask? Housing policy and the Canadian economy. I'm not making this up. A guy who literally grew up in palaces, who never had to worry about rent or mortgages or whether he could afford a house, standing on a stage talking about home supply issues. The irony is so thick, you could cut it with a knife. It's like getting financial advice from someone who's never had to check their bank account balance. Here's what makes it even more awkward. Let's talk about Harry's actual qualifications for this kind of thing. The man left school with 2 A-levels. That's it. And one of those A-levels, he needed help from a teacher to get it. That came out, by the way. So we're not talking about someone with a business degree, not someone who studied economics, not someone with any kind of background in finance or real estate or policy. 0. His education stopped at basic high school level, and now he's supposed to be giving expert talks about housing markets and economic strategy. It doesn't add up. But here's the brutal reality. Once you're no longer surrounded by royal staff, no longer protected by the palace system, and Hollywood stops returning your calls while Netflix closes the door, you don't get to be picky anymore. You take what you can get. And what Harry could get was a speaking gig at a real estate conference. The whole thing had nothing to do with expertise or having valuable insights to share. It was about one thing and one thing only: money. Because the bills don't stop coming just because you used to be a prince. The lifestyle doesn't magically get cheaper when the royal funding dries up. And that's when his new title became painfully clear to everyone watching. Prince for sale. Not the crown jewels kind of for sale, the pay to play, pay to speak, pay to show up kind, the kind where you're not being invited because of what you know or what you can contribute. You're being invited because of who you used to be, because your name still carries enough recognition to sell tickets, even if the substance isn't there. It's name value, not actual value. And everyone in that room probably knew it. The prestige was gone, the dignity had vanished. This was survival mode. The money gets tight, the big deals fall through, the streaming platforms lose interest, and suddenly...
Love, Meghan, that stupid program on Netflix, failed to rank among Netflix's top 300 most watched titles.
You're saying yes to things you never would have considered before. You start taking gigs that don't match your background. You start showing up to events that feel beneath what you used to represent. And the more desperate it looks, the more uncomfortable it becomes to watch. Because Harry went from being a prince with purpose to being a prince who will talk about anything as long as the check clears. And once you cross that line, once people see you're willing to do whatever it takes just to stay financially afloat, the respect disappears, the prestige fades, and all you're left with is a title that doesn't mean what it used to. So when the money stress hit red alert and things were looking shaky and desperate, something really interesting happened. Harry and Meghan suddenly decided their kids should be prince and princess after all. Yeah, those titles they once said they didn't want. The ones they claimed would put too much pressure on their children. The titles they suggested the palace was being unfair about, maybe even blocking them. Remember all that talk about wanting a normal upbringing for their kids, about protecting them from the royal spotlight, about giving them privacy and a chance to just be regular children? Well, apparently that whole philosophy changed the second the bank account started looking different. The timing here is everything, because this wasn't some random decision that came out of nowhere. This happened as the Netflix deal was falling apart, the big money wasn't flowing in anymore, and Harry was suddenly doing real estate speeches to pay the bills. And boom, suddenly the kids need their royal titles. Suddenly being Prince Archie and Princess Lilibet matters. The titles got claimed, the royal status got secured, and the brand value got unlocked. All at once. Convenient timing, don't you think? And here's why that timing matters so much. Titles aren't just fancy names you put on a birth certificate. They're not just something that sounds nice when you introduce your kids. In the world Harry and Meghan are trying to operate in, titles are marketing gold. Pure, genuine, sell anything you want marketing gold. Because there's a massive difference between selling products from Harry and Meghan's kids versus selling products from Prince Archie and Princess Lilibet of Sussex. One sounds like celebrity children. The other sounds like actual royalty. And royalty sells at a completely different price point. Think about it. A parenting empire featuring a prince and princess.
Meghan Markle is trying to rebrand herself by treading on Martha Stewart's turf in her new Netflix lifestyle series with Love.
A family brand with legitimate royal sparkle attached to it. Products that can be tied to children with royal titles. That's not just a brand. That's a gold mine. Every single thing they put the kids' names or images on suddenly has that extra layer of prestige, that royal connection that makes people think it's worth more, means more, matters more. The Sussex brand was struggling, but the Sussex royal brand, that's a whole different ballgame, and Harry and Meghan knew exactly what they were doing when they made that switch. But here's where the whole thing gets uncomfortable, because while they were securing these titles and building this royal brand around their children, they were also lecturing everyone else about how kids should be protected online. They warned people about posting children on social media. They talked about privacy and safety and keeping kids out of the public eye. They positioned themselves as the responsible parents who understood the dangers of exposing children to the internet. But then what did they actually do? They posted the kids online weekly, not occasionally, not rarely. Weekly. Pictures, updates, little glimpses into their lives, all shared with millions of people on the internet. And it gets worse. They weren't just posting random family photos for fun. They were using their children's images to sell stuff. Honey, sage, lifestyle products, you name it. The kids weren't just part of the family content. They were part of the business model. Every post featuring the children was also featuring a product, a brand, a message that tied back to something they were trying to sell. So all that talk about privacy, all those warnings about protecting children from exploitation, it was happening in their own house by their own hands with their own kids. The double standard is impossible to ignore. They wanted privacy when it suited them, but publicity when it helped the brand. They wanted protection for their children, but only from other people, not from their own marketing strategies. They talked about letting kids be kids, but then used those same kids to boost their business ventures. It wasn't parenting. It was packaging. It wasn't family first. It was brand first. And the kids weren't being raised, they were being rolled out. Timed releases, strategic appearances, carefully crafted moments, all designed to keep the Sussex brand relevant and profitable.
If you've got to make people sign documents, you don't get into Jeff Bezos's house. This was at someone's home.
Because at the end of the day, the big entertainment deals dry up, Netflix walks away, Hollywood stops calling, and you look for the next big product to sell. And in this story, that product had a last name. Sussex, with freshly claimed royal titles attached. Prince and princess weren't just identities for those kids. They were price tags, marketing tools, brand assets that could be leveraged whenever the money got tight. And that's exactly what happened. Now, while Meghan and Harry were spinning in circles with canceled shows, awkward trailers, mommy empire plans, and money scrambles, something completely different was happening across the royal universe. Enter Catherine, Princess of Wales. And this is a plot twist nobody could ignore, because Catherine had been gone from the spotlight for a while. Not because she was rebranding or pivoting to a new business strategy. She was dealing with cancer, genuine pain, genuine struggle, no cameras following her around, no crafts with strangers for content, no staged kisses for trailers, just health, family, and healing. The kind of private, difficult journey that doesn't get turned into marketing material. And then she came back. But she didn't return with a publicity stunt, no lifestyle special, no product line announcement or brand initiative. No look at me moment to prove anything to anyone. She came back with purpose. Catherine stepped onto a stage in front of leaders, speaking to companies and major organizations about genuine issues that affect people's lives. She talked about supporting parents, about workers, about families. Big stuff. Important stuff. The kind of topics that require substance, not just surface-level buzzwords. Her message wasn't complicated or overly polished. It was simple and powerful. Love matters more than success. Family matters more than fame. She spoke calmly, confidently, and from a place that felt honest. No scripts that sounded like they'd been through 10 rounds of PR editing. No performance for the cameras, just straightforward communication about things that matter to regular people trying to balance work and family life. And the audience? They were full of powerful adults, CEOs, leaders, decision makers, people who've heard a million speeches and can smell fake from a mile away. And they listened. They didn't listen because Catherine forced a moment or manufactured some kind of emotional scene.
There are so many wider issues at stake. The future of the monarchy, this streamlined monarchy that you keep hearing people talking about. What does that...
She didn't drag anyone into a kiss or chase engagement metrics and social media buzz. They listened because she had respect. Earned, built over time respect. The kind you can't buy or fake or generate through clever marketing. It comes from showing up consistently, doing the work when nobody's watching, and caring about the issues you're talking about instead of just using them as content opportunities. And that's where the contrast becomes impossible to miss. While Meghan was trying to look like the queen of mommy branding, carefully staging every cozy moment and dropping hints about her empire plans, Catherine was acting like a future queen of a country. One was performing motherhood for an audience, building a business model around family content. The other was protecting motherhood as a value, speaking about it in ways that might create change for working parents everywhere. One was staging a cozy image for profit. The other was working toward creating genuine impact. It was like putting a plastic crown next to a jewel. From a distance, maybe they look similar, but up close, the difference is undeniable. One reflects light in a way that's manufactured, designed to catch your eye but lacking any depth. The other has weight, substance, something that can't be replicated or faked. And when people saw that contrast playing out, watched Catherine come back from hardship with purpose while Meghan was rolling out another business pivot, the comparison made Meghan's whole empire start looking more like a costume than a kingdom. Because in the royal world, and honestly in any world, there's a massive difference between chasing attention and earning admiration. Chasing attention is loud, desperate, constantly needing validation and engagement. Earning admiration is quiet, steady, built on actions that speak louder than any marketing campaign ever could. One demands that you look, the other makes you want to listen. And when those two approaches exist side by side, playing out on the same stage with the same level of public scrutiny, it becomes crystal clear which one has staying power and which one is just noise. Here's the thing about fame. Once people stop taking you seriously, it's nearly impossible to get that respect back. And that's exactly what started happening to Meghan and Harry. Remember when their names alone could fill headlines and break the internet? When every interview, every photo, every rumor...
She is the most insecure person I have seen in the public eye in a long time. That is why...
felt like a global event? When people would stop what they were doing just to see what they said next? Yeah, that energy is completely gone now. It vanished. And what replaced it is something so much worse than being ignored. They became the punchline. Now, instead of being talked about like royalty or even like serious public figures, they're getting discussed like a joke that everyone's heard too many times. Harry's getting mocked by his old school friends, the people he grew up with, the ones who knew him before all of this. They're making fun of him. His speeches are getting questioned. People are asking out loud what qualifies him to talk about the topics he's choosing. His credentials are being doubted, not just by random internet commenters, but by people who matter in those industries. It's brutal to watch. And Meghan, her show got labeled boring, not just underwhelming or disappointing. Boring, that's the worst thing you can call content in the entertainment world. Her brand got called empty, hollow, nothing behind the polish. Her content got dismissed as surface-level fluff, with no substance underneath. No sparkle, no mystery, no magic left in any of it. Just noise that people scroll past without a second thought. Because when your big Netflix special feels like homework to get through instead of entertainment people want to watch, you've lost the plot entirely. But here's what really sealed the deal. Netflix, backing away, sent a message to everyone in Hollywood. And it wasn't subtle. When the biggest streaming platform in the world, the company that throws money at projects left and right, looks at your brand and says, "We're good, we don't need to renew this," every other executive in town pays attention. They all talk to each other. They all see the numbers, the viewer reactions, the engagement metrics. And when Netflix quietly lets a deal expire without even trying to negotiate, that tells everyone else exactly what they need to know. The investment isn't worth it anymore. The return isn't there. The audience moved on. And that's when you realize you've lost your value, not as human beings, obviously, but as Hollywood assets, as entertainment properties, as brands that companies want to attach themselves to. In that world, in that industry, losing value is the biggest blow you can take. Worse than a scandal, worse than bad press. Because scandals can be spun, bad press can be managed, but when the money people decide you're not profitable anymore, that's a door closing that doesn't reopen easily.
The second series of her With Love, Meghan is back. And it turns out just when you thought Meghan Markle couldn't get any more annoying.
Because respect isn't about cameras or contracts or how many followers you have. It's about credibility, about people believing you when you speak, trusting that you mean what you say, feeling like there's substance behind the image you're projecting. And little by little, theirs was slipping away like sand falling through an hourglass. Every awkward moment caught on camera, every business pivot that looked desperate, every contradiction between what they said and what they did, it all added up. The credibility eroded, the trust disappeared, and once that's gone, the audience stops caring. Netflix didn't have to make a big announcement about why they weren't renewing. The silence said everything, and once one major player steps back, others follow. It's like watching dominoes fall in slow motion. One company decides the ROI isn't there, then another reassesses their interest, then another passes on a pitch. And suddenly, you're not getting the calls you used to get. You're not in the rooms you used to be invited to. The opportunities dry up, not with a dramatic rejection, but with a quiet, "we'll get back to you," that never turns into anything. And that's the harsh reality of fame. It doesn't fall with a loud crash that gets everyone's attention. It falls with a silent shrug. People just stop caring, they stop watching, they stop believing, they stop talking about you in the way that matters. You go from must-see to background noise, from trending topic to yesterday's news. And when the audience genuinely looks away, when they're not hate-watching or curiosity-clicking or even bothering to have an opinion anymore, the spotlight doesn't just dim. It turns off completely. And getting it back on, that's the hard part nobody warns you about. So at the end of the day, what did we learn from all of this? That respect isn't something you can manufacture or buy or generate through clever marketing campaigns. It's not about how many cameras are pointed at you or how big your contracts used to be or how many followers you've managed to collect on social media. Respect is about credibility, about people believing you when you speak, about trust that builds over time through consistency, through actions that match your words, through showing up as genuine instead of performing as perfect. And for Harry and Meghan, that credibility just slipped away. Not all at once with some massive scandal or dramatic moment.
That's right. A source told American journalist Rob Shutter that this deal is dead. They said
It happened slowly, like sand falling through fingers. You can see it happening, you can feel it leaving, but you can't really stop it once it starts. Every contradiction between what they said and what they did, every business move that looked desperate instead of strategic, every staged moment that felt forced instead of real. It all added up. The trust eroded bit by bit until there wasn't much left to hold on to. Because here's what really happened. People stopped caring. They stopped watching their content with genuine interest. They stopped believing the narrative being sold to them. They stopped talking about Harry and Meghan as people they admired, or even people they loved to hate. The conversation just faded into indifference, which is so much worse than criticism. You can bounce back from people hating you. You can turn around negative attention. But indifference? That's the killer. People scroll past without a second thought, don't even bother to have an opinion anymore, and suddenly you've lost something that's incredibly hard to get back. And that's the harsh reality of fame that nobody really talks about. It doesn't end with a bang. There's no dramatic finale where everything crashes and burns in spectacular fashion. Fame dies quietly. The audience just looks away. The spotlight doesn't explode, it just turns off. One day you're the main character in everyone's feed, and then gradually, without anyone really noticing the exact moment it happened, you're just not anymore. You become background noise. Yesterday's story. The name people recognize but can't quite remember why they used to care about. Netflix walking away was the clearest sign of what was already happening. The biggest platform in streaming decided the Sussex brand wasn't worth renewing. And once that door closed, others noticed. The opportunities started drying up, the invitations stopped coming, the phone got quieter. Because in Hollywood, in entertainment, in the world they chose to operate in, your value is measured by what people will pay attention to. And when nobody's paying attention anymore, when the audience has genuinely moved on to the next thing, that's when you realize the hardest truth of all. Fame isn't permanent. Respect isn't guaranteed. And once you lose both, getting them back might be the most impossible comeback story you'll ever try to write. And that's where we are. If you made it this far, hit that like button and subscribe if you haven't already. Drop a comment and let me know what you think. I'll see you in the next one.